Right, we are live in the
Hello,
50 Plus and
everyone.
Fabulous group for another Money Monday. We are here with Deb. And Deb, where are you coming from today?
Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Oh, Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Is it cold up there still?
You know, it was really cold and blustery yesterday, but it's Michigan, so we take it day by day. Today is pretty beautiful, actually. So.
Yeah, I'm in Chicago. We kind of had the same weather. It was extremely windy. And my sister, who lives in Madison, she's a tiny little thing, and she said, I'm afraid to go outside. I might blow away. I said, yeah, you need a weight vest or something. So it was really, I mean, the flags, when you look at the flags outside, whew, they were being whipped around. Yeah.
Yeah, yesterday was pretty bad here. All our trees are
but
blooming.
Today it's sunshine and the crocuses are up. So, spring is, definitely in sight.
Good.
Awesome. So yeah, we love coming into the 50 Plus and Fabulous group and sharing Purse Strings approved providers, our free financial education, just because we want all women to be financially fearless, own their financial story, and come to the table. It's not always fun, it's not always sexy, but we're here.
Empowering.
It's empowering. We're going to make it that
very
way.
important.
Yeah, it's very important. And, just being in charge of your own finances is so important. Too often women have given that to somebody else or not really addressed it or really dug into it. And as we all know, women will typically age alone, typically, not always. And that's not the time to start learning or planning. Now is the time, today. Start today, no matter how old you are. Really take a good look at your own financials. It can be scary to kind of look at those balances, whatever they are, whether they be credit or debit balances. But, putting your head in the sand doesn't help. So we're here to just be that kind of fun, engaging, warm, inviting group, no judgment, and provide women with tools and resources to help them make the best financial decisions for themselves and for their families. We're going to be talking a lot about family today, right, Deb?
That's exactly right. And everything that you said is going to be extremely relevant to today's conversation. Maggie, I know you're going to help me with the presentation, but even the first bit is, a couple of statistics. I don't know if they're being presented now.
We can throw those up. Oh,
there we go. Yeah.
Do you want to do the introduction first, Meg? Sorry.
We could just pull up these slides and then I'll give an introduction to Deb.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, just a backdrop, Barbara, exactly what you were talking about. And the one that just floors me is that 80% of women will die without their spouse, and that it's the converse for men. And when you consider in the context of that 2/3 of all caregivers are women and that a quarter of our population has some sort of disability, you can see how incredibly important understanding how to take care of your finances in the context of special needs. If you're a woman, you're bound to be impacted by this. So
yeah, thanks for that. We're very excited to have you on today, and this is just such a needed topic. So let me give an introduction to Deb, and then I'll just give you the floor. So Deb draws on her own life experiences, and she is especially passionate about helping women in transition and families with children who have special needs find confidence, clarity, and peace when planning for the future. She partners with her clients in a fiduciary capacity to address concerns and chart financial path towards their goals. So Deb, we are so excited to have you. I will give you the floor.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this really important and sometimes scary topic. Planning for the future of a child with special needs involves the entire and often extended family. But the reality is that women are most often the ones who carry out the plans. So the topic is particularly relevant to this group. When I meet with clients, they often ask, who's going to take care of my child when I can't do it anymore? Where is she going to live? How are we going to afford this? And what will life be like for me and maybe my spouse when we're older? So a lot of people cope just by taking life one day at a time, But in the backs of our minds, we know that planning now is much better than not planning, and then being forced to deal with whatever life throws our way. So this presentation is intended to give you some key manageable steps that will empower you with clarity so that you can plan for the future with more confidence and hopefully breathe a little easier. So with that, we will start where we are and address what we can today in the little bit of time that we have. So first things, Maggie, if you can share, I have a few disclosures that I'm required to present. You can move forward. I am a licensed investment advisor and registered representative in the state of Michigan, and I'm licensed to sell insurance and annuities. Any securities are through Sigma Financial, and I'm a fee-based investment advisory service. Continuing on, I'm located in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and these are standard disclaimers. This is not intended to be a sales seminar by any means. I welcome your questions, and feel free to reach out at the end of this presentation if you've got personal specific questions that I can help you with. But moving on, Maggie. I am Deb Purcell, and I'm a certified financial planning professional. So I'm a financial planner, and I serve clients both with and without special needs with their retirement planning, investment management, and a broad range of financial services. But I'm also one of a limited number of chartered special needs consultants. And that gives me a broad understanding of how benefits eligibility, expenses, and long-term planning are different for families who have a child with special needs. My passion for working with families who have special needs does come from my personal experience. So Maggie, if you can forward. Meet my brother, John. He is 2 years younger than me, and he was born with cerebral palsy. And John has lived a very full and successful life by many measures. There were 6 kids in my family, and so John is lucky to have a large and supportive extended family. He's always been active in his community, and he worked for over 25 years as a greeter at a large department store. And like many people, John started to feel the signs of age in his 50s. And so he retired. But let's move forward, Maggie. As many of you can relate, my family's story, especially as it relates to planning, is not just about John. For my parents, caring for John was a labor of love, but the stress and physical demands took a toll on their physical and emotional health. So the 2 photos of John with my mom here were taken just a couple years apart. But in between, my dad passed away and my mom literally shouldered the burden and began to struggle, even as John was starting to experience his own health issues. So not the least of her worries and ours was how we would care for John when she was no longer able to, and how we would afford it. And I will share that while going over my mom's finances after my dad passed away, I discovered that he made several unfortunate mistakes and missed opportunities that cost my brother, at a minimum, hundreds of dollars a month in support. And so now I hope to help other families avoid some of those pitfalls. So moving forward, Maggie, let's begin. Today's goal is to give you a framework that will help you to make financial planning manageable. So many of you have heard the riddle, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time. Well, we all have psychological, emotional, and logistical barriers to thinking about the future when hard decisions need to be made or when there's a lot of uncertainty. And so today we're just going to see what happens if we take the remainder of the time, maybe a deep breath, and open our minds to what if. Maggie, here are 6 key steps that will help you begin the financial planning process. So keep in mind that planning is a process, not an event. And we know circumstances and goals change. So you should expect that your plan will evolve. But the framework, this framework will help you adjust as you're moving along that path. So I'll walk through each of these steps. This is going to be a high level overview. And so I ask you to, kind of consider this in very general terms and reach out if you have personal circumstances. Everyone's situation is unique. But honestly, a lot of progress comes from just knowing the questions to ask. So with that, step one, Maggie, every good financial plan begins with setting goals, and that's whether you have special needs or not. There are templates available to help with this step, including an online version from a national organization called the ARC, which helps families across the board who have special needs. If you check them out, the National ARC Center for Future Planning has a great online template that they've developed. But the format is not nearly as important as just working through the process and documenting the vision. And here's a key, in a way that it can be shared with others. So don't get hung up on making it perfect. It is going to change over time. But do try to be as specific as possible. For example, when you're thinking about lifestyle and housing preferences, what does my child like to do in the morning versus the evening? Do they like a certain color or certain surroundings? It can feel pretty concrete at times. Other times it's going to feel pretty murky. So just take your best shot and include your child's input if that's feasible. It's not the time to restrict your vision. So just dream big and try to get input from family members or friends who may have insight from an outside perspective. This is especially important if you expect any of them to take an active role in your child's care in the future. And remember that your plan for the future should include a plan for yourself. If you can move forward, Maggie. I want to share a useful tool, and that is charting your timeline. And, I just mentioned, consider for yourself as well. So this can be something you sketch down. It can be something that you do in Excel or another format and maintain. But make 2 columns side by side. You can start with 2021 at the top and maybe move down in 5-year increments. The objective is not really to set goals, it's just the facts. By acknowledging major milestones, it can be hard to think about aging, but just putting the facts in writing can help you figure out the questions to ask, like, what goals do I want to plan for? How much time is available for saving? And that's really important to your financial advisors. And what are the likely changes in income, in benefits, and support needs over time? So moving forward, Maggie, step 2, and you can actually begin this step before you finish step 1, although it does help to have kind of a plan, a vision for the future when you're approaching it, is to understand your starting point. So here, we're looking to achieve clarity by answering 3 fundamental questions. Do I owe more than I own? So how much debt do I have? Do I spend more than I earn? Or if less, then how much less? And can I foresee any expected changes to these answers in the future? So the timing of today's webinar is good. We're in March, and a lot of us are putting together information for taxes. We may have just completed going through 2020 review of our credit card spending. So many credit cards offer spending by category. So this might be a good time to approach this second step and try to understand exactly what is your current situation financially. For families with special needs, there's a couple of differences in the exercise. First, we're trying to identify assets or resources along with income and expenses that are unique to your child and will move with your child when he or she moves to live independent from you. And next, we need to take a look at changes on the horizon, including need for care or a reduction in income, for example, retirement, that may impact your ability to achieve your vision. So it can help to document this information, as I mentioned, either in a spreadsheet or just a second column, and that's going to help create the plan or the basis for your plan. So next slide, please. Step 3 is to build a team. A quick review: we've created a vision, we have an understanding of our starting point, and we've all heard the term, it takes a village, and nowhere is that more true than when planning for a child with special needs. So it takes the coordination between a team of experts, and the financial aspects require, it's a sub-team, and these people are going to bring specialized knowledge to the process. So in addition to your financial planner or advisor, the team will probably include an estate attorney, a tax expert, a benefits expert, but these people should be people who specifically have understanding of special needs and benefits. So I'm just going to mention one of these mistakes that my family made is they went back to the family attorney, the estate attorney, to put a special needs trust together. Again, this was after my dad passed away. And that attorney put together a special needs trust, what was supposed to be a special needs trust. And when we looked it over, the language was exactly the opposite of what a special needs trust needs to stay in order to protect eligibility for government benefits. So it's just really important that you interview the team, that you feel like they can work together, and that you put together written permission for the team to share information with each other, but also that you share that vision that you created in step 1 with them so that everyone can align to that as a North Star. So next slide, Maggie. Step 4, exploring your options. This is where we actually explore the financial vehicles that will help you to reach your goals. And so while there's no magic bullet, a financial advisor who's well-versed in special needs should be able to explain how various choices will impact the likelihood of your achieving that vision that we created in step 1. They should be able to bring ideas to the table that can help with your current situation and also help to fund and protect your child in the future, especially after you're gone or when you leave this earth. They should be able to explain the risks and costs associated with the various choices. If you can forward, Maggie, a special call out is just where support comes from. So this was a survey put together that illustrates that for the vast majority of families, the parents and extended family members are the people who provide the funding to take care of a child with special needs. However, that really does switch when the child reaches adulthood and when the parents move to getting closer to retirement or in retirement. And so even if you're younger or if, with this group, if you're talking about a grandchild and it may seem like family members have things well under control, it's just really important to anticipate a time when government benefits step in. It is very rare that any family can support all of the needs of a child with special needs throughout their entire lifetime. And again, just personal sharing. This was an issue for my dad. He was very proud, and it was really hard for him to consider registering my brother for SSI when my brother turned 18. He never did it, and that was one of the things that he missed that caused my brother not to be eligible for certain government benefits much later in my brother's life, when my dad retired and then when my dad ultimately passed away. So next slide, please, Maggie. Special note about inheritance. Again, we may have some grandmothers on the phone. I'm one. And it seems that every family, everyone wants to help, but it's really important when you understand the importance of, again, these government benefits in supporting a family and a child with special needs, to understand that if you leave money directly to a child who is dependent on government benefits, that money can be considered the child's asset and make them ineligible to receive government funding. So there are special ways to deal with this. The most common is a third-party special needs trust, where rather than leaving money directly to the child, you leave it to the special needs trust. This would also be potentially a bucket to receive funds that would come from a life insurance policy, again, rather than leaving them directly to the child. That way, the funds can be there. They can be used for a variety of really important needs, clothing, technology, caregiving, companion services, a variety of things, just not the things that are being provided by Social Security or the government agencies. It's also important to just know that Medicaid in particular varies state by state. So again, it's really important to work with somebody who understands the benefits eligibility in your state. And it's important to share with family members or anyone else really who you think might be inclined to want to help and leave funds to your child, to make sure that they're not leaving funds directly to the child, which Maggie actually takes us right into our next slide, which is communicating the plan. So it's so important that everyone involved in your child's care understands the game plan for providing for that child's needs, especially when you're no longer able to communicate and provide care yourself. So communicating the plan really includes keeping the plan up to date, identifying who needs to know it, and share the information with those people. And I recommend that you choose an annual event like your child's birthday or the new year, or we just talked about after filing your tax return, and then create a tradition for sharing the information and inviting questions and concerns, really. It's much better to address those now than to leave it to the people to figure that out after you no longer can communicate these things. And I say that again as a sibling. My dad was a very proud and private person, and none of us had any idea what was supposed to happen, what was our expected role from him in terms of stepping in and taking care of my brother. We didn't know if there was funds available or not available. None of that was shared. And I'll give you another example. If, for example, your child is still living at home in the family home, and then you pass away and your will has left the house to all of your children, how confusing is it to get coordinated consensus among the siblings? Do you sell the house because that's where the funding was supposed to come from to take care of your child? Or do you keep the house, in which case there's no money, so that the sibling, this child with special needs, can go on living as they have? So it's these types of questions that really need to be worked through as a family and shared and updated on an annual basis as circumstances change. So if we go down to the next slide and final step, Maggie, it is to review and adjust the plan regularly. The best plans focus on long-term success, but they do allow for change as circumstances change, and they will. Laws will change, tax codes will change, benefit eligibility rules will change. But the process that I've laid out does lend itself to review, and you should rely heavily on that professional team, on family members, and the other parties that will take a more active role as you need to gradually, hopefully, step back from handling it all yourself. So now, Maggie, I think we have a little bit of time if there are some questions.
Thank you, Deb. That was fantastic. Some great information for families. We're willing to take any questions, so if anyone would like to post any questions, that'd be great. But we did have a lady from Chicago saying that she's been a special needs parent for almost 16 years and didn't even realize that there was a designation for chartered special needs financial planners. How common are those?
It is growing. The designation has been around. It's really less than 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and as I mentioned, I'm a certified financial planning professional, which is a designation that covers a very broad area of planning, including retirement planning and taxes and investments and so forth. So I was shocked when I pursued the special needs consultant designation to see how much more there is specifically as it relates to special needs and financial planning. Things like tax write-offs that you can plan for, whether it's a home remodel, could be actually considered a medical expense. And there's a lot there that people who do have the special needs designation can bring to the table that even people who've been in the industry, financial planning industry for decades may not know.
That's awesome. It's great information that families definitely need. We have a question here that says, if the person with special needs became disabled due to an accident and there is a trust fund from insurance, is this handled differently than, say, a will?
Yes, it's handled differently in a number of ways. First of all, we're going to assume that this happens before the child is an adult, because we're talking mostly about children with special needs here. The first thing to understand is it's not handled the same way as an inheritance or a gift, because technically, usually, the settlement from an insurance plan is an asset in the name of the child. And so it's the child's asset. So everything that I mentioned before about benefits eligibility comes into play. And there's a special kind of trust. It's called a first party special needs trust, as opposed to third party, because it's owned by the first party, the child, that can be useful, again, in setting funds aside without impacting eligibility. The biggest drawback is that if there are funds left in that trust when the child passes away, in most circumstances, the state's Medicaid organization or government agencies who have been providing services will claim whatever's left as repayment for the services that have been provided. Whereas with a third-party special needs trust, you can have contingent beneficiaries. So if the child passes away, any leftover funds can go to siblings. It's quite different than a will, which was part of the question. Anytime that you have accounts and you name a beneficiary on the account, so if it's investment accounts, bank accounts, life insurance beneficiaries, those trump a will. Basically, what is listed in those as contracts, basically, the funds are dispersed as written in those documents, regardless what your will says. So it's really important to review those beneficiaries and account owners on any accounts that exist, because the will won't touch those.
Interesting. We have comments in here that say, I really appreciate the perspective of a sibling, that clarity on other children's role is very important in being transparent about the funds and, what's available to who. Another question says, I think you might have mentioned this, but dealing with taxes, is there a list to check off to better understand what people might be able to write off?
Oh, there are several. Again, I'm here in Michigan, and there's a really good resource made available from the Arc of Oakland County here in Michigan. Again, a lot of it may be Michigan specific, but not all of it by any stretch. So I can share a link eventually, or if anyone wants to reach out to me, I can get that in your hands. But again, just like with making sure that your estate attorney knows special needs and that your financial planner knows special needs, it's really important that your tax person does as well.
Awesome. This question says, so many programs for living independently seem focused on those with developmental disabilities. Our child is cognitively typical, but has extreme medical fragility. Any living arrangements available for this type of situation? She needs help with activities of daily living and some medical care, but isn't typical candidate for assisted living facility.
Yeah, my heart goes out to you. First of all, that's one of the biggest challenges and the biggest concerns is where's my child going to live? My brother's circumstance, he has some learning disabilities, but he is intelligent and he's quadriplegic. He needs 24/7 medical care. And so the circumstances may be a little bit, similar to what you're talking about. It's going to differ. And unfortunately, there's no, pat answer. It depends on where you live and what type of housing is available. It also does depend on your financial picture. So, if you have the means, you may be able to create a housing situation that's a shared living situation. But when you're talking about the need for 24/7 care, medical needs, it really is a challenge.
And so, Deb, going into a little bit more of what you do, I know you're in Michigan. Can you only practice in Michigan?
I can practice beyond Michigan. Again, I can do things like today. This is not giving individual advice, but
Right.
as an investment advisor, I'm licensed specifically in Michigan. If I have enough people in another state, I would consider, getting licensed in another state as well.
Awesome. All right, let me see if any more questions are going to come through. But this has been some great information, and I know these families really appreciate everything that you do.
Yeah, Deb, thank you. I really appreciate the whole idea of communication, right? It seems like your dad being very proud, and also a whole nother era where we just didn't really talk about a lot of things. We really need to start talking about a lot of things, right?
100%, yes.
Yeah, and I understand that. I understand that time frame, but now we need to talk about money. We need to talk about how you're going to help raise this child. And like you said, it does take a village, and the village needs to be communicated to, right?
Barb, there's one other issue that I think is worth just kind of putting on everyone's minds, and that is longevity. And what's really fascinating to me is that I believe that we're approaching this burgeoning cohort of people with disabilities who are going into retirement that never existed before. So, for example, people who have Down syndrome in the 1980s, life expectancies was like in their 20s, and now they're leading full life expectancies in many cases. And what's interesting there too is that people without disabilities, as they age, begin to have a lot of the same needs as people with disabilities have had all their lives. So I think it will be very interesting to watch the space and have that conversation that you're talking about, and including with our legislatures, of how do we create situations where we're caring for all people with physical and cognitive issues, whether it's the result of aging or the result of a disability that they've had for their entire life.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I didn't even
so
think
true.
of that as well, right? Yeah. But yeah, I think communication is like the biggest topic. I loved your step-by-step planning. And I just think that you've given kind of a good roadmap and kind of learn, a lot of financial professionals kind of say, learn from what I learned in a very difficult situation, whether it be getting divorced or, like you said, your mom raising a child with special needs and not really understanding all or leveraging all the benefits. So we all kind of dig in and want to share this information so that you can really share it with people and they understand that all these resources are out there and how to best leverage it. And I love that there's a certification for what you do, because it sounds like it can be complex and we need people to speak to those complexities, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. We did have another question come in, and that was, how do you find a chartered special needs financial advisor?
Well, I would start with Google. The designation is through the American College of Financial Services, so that would be another website to double check.
Awesome. All right, well, we really appreciate it, all this great information today. So you can always reach Deb at A New Financial Path, or Deb Purcell at anewfinancialpath.com.
It's at A New Path Financial, yeah.
Thank you. A New Path Financial. She's also one of our Purse Strings approved providers, so she has her own webpage on our pursestrings.co website. And we'll be back next Monday for another Money Monday. And so we're excited to see everyone there. Thank you again, Deb.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.